Yes, sir.
What did you learn about religious minorities?
So, according to your article you have given yesterday,
Uh,
so you have mentioned about Sufism.
uh,
And,
no. First, let us do religious minorities. IR8. Did you read the position of Muslims?
no, sir.
You did. Okay. Supraja, did you read?
Yes, yes, sir. Only first document which you sent, I have read.
Okay. First, tell me what is that. Let us discuss the first thing. Hmm.
Um,
See, there are two things about the position of religious minorities, and the second thing is about secularization, and within India and the world over, issues related to Islam. Okay. Hmm.
um, Muslims are not getting enough political representation.
Muslims are not getting enough political representation. That's true. Can you just explain only the point? Why is it so?
Because we are following a first past post system instead of
Okay.
proportional representation.
Instead of proportional representation. Okay. But then there are many groups which are, some groups are being represented, though we are not following proportional representation. How are they getting represented?
Because Muslims are scattered, 14% Muslims are scattered all over the country.
Okay. Now I'm saying there are other groups. There are other groups. How are they getting represented? Are they getting represented?
Uh,
Is everybody getting represented as per their percentage share?
no,
Hmm?
no, sir.
Who are not getting represented?
Uh, Muslims,
Muslims are
Christians,
not getting represented. Christians are not getting represented. Okay, but how about others?
uh,
For example, Dalits.
okay.
Are they getting represented?
Compared to Muslims, I think they are getting represented.
No, even otherwise, are they getting represented according to their population share?
No, sir.
Why do you think no?
Uh, Upper class Hindus are only dominating.
What is your answer, Deepika? Are they getting represented in the parliament?
Sir, the Hindu Dalits are getting represented through reservation system, but Dalits of other like Muslims are not getting represented.
Okay. And how about scheduled tribes?
They are getting represented as per their population percentage.
So, Supraja, now you get the answer.
Yes, sir.
Lack of proportional representation and lack of reservations. There are other groups which are getting representation through reservations. Only Muslims have this problem. And Christian community is too small. We don't have to think of representation. 2% is too small, and some people will be are Christians. Some members will be Christians. So it is essentially, it is about Muslim underrepresentation. SCs are getting represented, STs are getting represented. It is only Muslims who don't have reservation and who don't have proportional representation. So as a community, the electoral system is impacting Muslims. But do you think this is one very important point about Muslims and their position in India? Yes or no, Supraja?
Yes, sir.
Why is it so?
When you are politically empowered, other domains may also be increased.
Exactly. That is the reason why I covered political representation first. Because democracy goes by political representation. Essentially, it's political representation. You don't have political representation because no representative democracy, or sorry, no proportional representation and no reservations. That is the issue. And scattered, 14%, but scattered. Okay. Now, can you tell me, now I want to ask you, some students asked previously, why don't we have an all India level Muslim party that can mobilize Muslim votes? What is your answer to that question? So, Praja, right? When Muslims are being discriminated, why don't we have one all India Muslim political party which will mobilize all the votes of Muslims? Can you answer? Supraja?
No, sir.
No. Okay, let me see who will answer. Ye Vishal.
We all India
Hmm.
here,
Make it clear.
but
Make it clear. It is not clear.
we do have a all India Muslim party.
Ah.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, we do have.
AIMI.
Okay.
But the thing why many cannot mobilize is that of fear from the majoritarian.
Because of fear.
That
Fear of the majority.
because often AIMI
M. Vishal, let me see how you can understand things politically, political understanding. M. Vishal, only one answer.
Sir, because the population is dispersed across the country and
Exactly. No political party can emerge. Even if all the Muslims support one party, it can't get the seats. That is the problem. So do you see how the first past the post system affects the political system? A group can be terribly affected in this system. This is primarily geared towards the system where groups are nearly equal. When they are not equal, proportional representation is better. Or when the identities are not so clear, proportional representation, the first past is better. But when there are clear-cut identities, there are group-wise domination, proportional representation makes better sense. So it is 14%, but dispersed. And they can't. So except in constituencies, certain constituencies in Jammu and Kashmir and some places here and there, they can't get elected their own person on their own. So what do they tend to do? They have to support other political parties which are pro-Muslim. And if nobody is pro-Muslim, they have to choose a lesser evil. And that is what is going on now. They have to choose one party which is less anti-Muslim. So dispersal of population of 14% and across, where they can't get their own MPs and MLAs, has serious implications. So you have to go for proportional representation or reservations. Muslims don't have either. So that is the reason they are underrepresented. And now majoritarianism, polarization. If somebody is saying anything in favor of Muslims, then the party will be dubbed anti-Hindu. So electorally, this is the issue. So what is happening is that political marginalization, peripheralization is happening. And because politically they are not represented, then other things follow. Okay. Now next. Can you tell me one factor that affected their education very badly? Sunil?
Sir, first of all, they don't have any representation.
No,
And
that's true. That we okay, that's point. But how did that affect? Oh, sorry, there is a problem in religious angle. But let us look at political and aspect, political and economic social aspect. Did state play a role in affecting their education in a negative way?
yes, it did.
Hmm?
Yes, it did.
How?
Sir, most of it is discrimination.
But where more specifically?
Sir, we can go by the data and we have very less representation. I mean,
No, that you covered more specifically. Supraja, can you answer this? How was education affected?
Urdu language.
Hmm? Haram.
Yeah, Urdu language.
Urdu language. Urdu language affects school education and after that high school and then secondary education, college, post-graduation, jobs, everything. Education in mother tongue is very important. Urdu language is not recognized. And after recognition, there is discrimination. So neglect of Urdu language affected their education. But of course, if they had enough political representation, then the neglect of Urdu language would not have happened. So political representation is the main point, no doubt about it. But we're just seeing how that lack of political representation affected other variables. Okay. Then underrepresentation in the bureaucracy. And when there is an underrepresentation in the bureaucracy, what happens? Then other things follow. Loans, infrastructure, law and order, bias in communal writing, many other things. Okay. Okay. So, finally, it is underrepresentation. Even the Muslim populated areas not having adequate infrastructure. Differences in loan, differences in employment opportunities. And finally, there is only one area in which they are overrepresented. What is that area?
Prisons.
Prisons. They're overrepresented in prisons, it seems. Much above 14%. So seeing all this, what do you think is the main reason for what is going on? How will you explain it in one sentence? What do you think is the cause?
Political representation.
Political representation. Okay, but even to go beyond, why so? Why even politically not represented? Why is all this? I mean, can we say this country, in this country, people felt basically this is a Hindu state? Don't you think people felt like that? And these are the people who troubled us, partition, left.
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? Do you
Yes,
agree
yes.
with that judgment?
Yes, sir. And they're still feeling, sir, that India is a Hindu state.
Nikhil, what is your understanding of your ground level experience, if you have any?
The area I'm working is not very Muslim dominated area,
Muslim dominated.
but like it is more Christian and tribal communities. Yeah.
Fine. We'll.
But sir, from my hometown where I belong, which is UP, and I come from like this place near the Faizabad district.
Okay. Okay.
A lot of things like I have felt and seen, in fact, like with this current government and this current 7-8 years, I think there has been a huge change in the kind of mindset against Muslims, and we could just feel in any conversation we start with any person. And one more thing I have observed, sir, is among the Muslims, being minorities and being part of the community, they try to fit in also at some time. So they will just accept the discrimination, or they will just try to blame themselves only for some reasons, the weak Muslims somehow. So that is something very strange. So once if they don't consolidate and they don't fight for something which is going on, I don't think there will be any substantial change. And so what we were discussing, I think, like we were talking, the first past polls or separate electorate, I think separate electorate could have solved this, like even Dalit representation.
That's true. Separate electorate is another. Separate electorate, representation, reservations. Three alternatives. But we said separate electorate is divisive.
So there is this small election experience.
Please.
So I am from Kalvakurti constituency. So we are 60 kilometers away from Hyderabad.
Okay.
So here it's BJP.
You are from Kalvakurti.
No, I am from Amangal, but constituency is Kalvakurti.
Okay.
So here it's like only area where BJP is strong. Here BJP is strong.
Okay.
And the MLA candidate from BJP is from my village.
Okay.
So he made sure that he garnered the support of Muslims in my area.
Okay.
Since he's a localite, they were also supporting him. He supported all that, and suddenly in TRS wave, it is the strong area for BJP. Amit Shah came and he gave one anti-Muslim speech. Till that day, all Muslims were ready to
vote for him.
Acharya, and Amit Shah's speech destroyed, and he lost by 79 votes.
Okay.
And which is from my village only. Like they did not, and all Muslims vote. They just go to one party. And he made sure that he though he's from BJP, he encouraged mosque, some infrastructure. He was working for Muslims, and one Amit Shah speech destroyed. He gave and he conducted a meeting in our village itself, Amit Shah, and it's gone.
That's true, but that maybe Amit Shah hasn't anticipated. But why do they make such speeches? Do they want to win or do they want to lose?
They thought, I don't know, Amit Shah might not have a ground reality. Here it is his individual thing. Acharya has been working for so many decades, like 3 decades. It is his individual popularity, and he thought it is because of BJP, and he just made one speech that telling Muslims are villains kind of speech, and everything is changed. 79 votes is very marginal. 79.
Normally, polarization is the strategy. Polarization is the strategy.
A similar thing would have worked in UP like wonders, sir.
Okay.
The it didn't work in her case, in Gayatri's case, but I think it would have worked for the political party.
No, if the polarization spreads, then things will work out differently. Muslims won't think of voting for a BJP candidate if sufficient polarization takes place. In Andhra Pradesh, I think it hasn't gone that far. So that is the reason why BJP wants to raise certain polarizing issues. So polarization is a way of spreading communal consciousness. Finally, they will come to think, even if he is so and so, his community matters and we will not vote, something like that. So separate electorate or proportional representation or reservations. Okay, that is good. This is one. And next, another point is which policy have contributed to the overall backwardness of Muslims, other than the political? That contributed to relative underdevelopment of Muslims on the whole compared to Hindus.
Their religion itself, less secularization of.
That is about religion, but we'll come to that. But don't you think this not extending reservations to Dalit Muslims would drastically affect the community? Because Hindu Dalits were being helped. Hindu Dalits were being helped by state support. Political reservation, employment opportunities, loans, and all kinds of things. And Muslim Dalits, no help at all. So when the worst section of the people is not helped, then it affects the overall community. I think that made huge difference. The lowest have to be supported by the state. That did not take place among the Muslims. Okay. That did not take place among the Muslims. So Dalit Muslims were not supported.
So what is Dalit Muslims? So like the one who converted Dalit Hindus.
Who were Dalits before Dalit Hindus, I will say untouchables, got converted to Islam. They are Dalit Muslims. They are Dalit Christians also, but then the Christianity is a modernizing force. Christian missionaries did a lot of work for the welfare of the converts, be it in education, health. Islam is neither modernizing nor it could get state help. And in addition, a direct hostility. Definitely, if you go by present population of Muslims Muslims, who are they likely to be? Definitely, they are more likely to be of lower caste rather than upper caste. In any community, lower caste and lower classes would be affected more. So, I think reservations played a role, underrepresentation in bureaucracy, prejudices, underrepresentation in political process, finally gave something like made a Hindu state. So what is the technical word that Jeffrey Lott used to describe Indian political system?
Ethnic democracy.
Ethnic democracy. Ethnic democracy. He is comparing India with Israel, where there is democracy, multi-party system, and sometimes instability, lot of coalitions, free and fair elections, and yet Palestinians are hugely discriminated. So in that sense, institutionalized majoritarianism, institutionalized and stable. So he's saying India is like ethnic democracy. And what is important in all these things is that this is not due to BJP, not due to RSS. Because these people came to power only recently. These things were happening before. So this seems to be the nature of the political arrangement. Who did not extend reservations? Not BJP. So this is the nature of the political arrangement. We were not sufficiently secular, nor we didn't even try to be secular. So there is discrimination, and this discrimination grew over the years. And it became brazen now. It's not that we were secular at one time and these people came and they are behaving differently. It's not all like that. India was never secular in practice. There's always a Hindu bias. But things became worse in recent years. Okay, definitely because of loss of ideology, loss of Congress, and what is also called a deepening of democracy. These things are also called a deepening of democracy, but democracy used in a different way. Deepening of democracy means the electoral system, elections, the leadership goes to the people level. Okay, and then when it goes to the people level, people's prejudices will get expressed. People's prejudices will get expressed. So people are manipulating with the prejudices. This is representational meanness. There is, you can say it is lack of leadership, lack of education. There is no lack of, there is lack of education. There is lack of leadership. It is somehow using people's emotions, miseducating them, somehow garnering votes. Okay. So underrepresentation in army, police, loans, infrastructure. Okay. So this is what Indian state is. Oh.
So,
Now tell me, have any questions?
so ethnic democracy is it is same as that of majoritarianism.
Majoritarianism is also right word. Majoritarianism, you can say. Ethnic democracy is a new word. Majoritarianism is true, ethnic democracy is true. But Jeffrey Lord saying this is not fascism. Fascism means it is not one powerful leader controlling everybody. He says that if it is fascism, it will not last long. If it is ethnic democracy, it can last long. So he's saying India will stabilize as ethnic democracy for many decades. So he wants to say it is not due to the present rulers. It's not like that. So it seems to be nature of the state. Nature of the state. It's just that it became more blatant or brazen now. It's not that there was secularism before and now suddenly things have changed. It's not all like that. Okay. Any questions on this?
Sir,
Please.
so by this we mean that Congress also has some element of Hinduism.
Of course. How can there be this underrepresentation and all these things? Who were ruling India for most of the time? It was Congress. So they were only giving ideology only on paper in words. They are not really following it up.
In the run-up of 2014 elections, KCR has promised that he will be fighting for 12% reservation for Muslims in Telangana.
Okay.
So there are critics that he knows that it is very well won't happen, and he just wanted to get
the
votes. Why can't it happen, sir? I mean, the central BJP, all that 9th schedule debate, but
no, I think technically it is possible. I believe that Muslims as a category, as a class, can be given reservations. Muslims as a class, because the constitution says other backward classes. And what is a class? Class is any group. So technically speaking, Constitution allows reservation for Muslims. I don't think secularism is an argument against reservation because what is reservation? Reservation is to bring equalities, not accentuate inequalities. So the class provision can be used. That is number one. And number two, there are already two states, Kerala and Karnataka, which has given reservations to all the Muslims minus creamy layer. Reasonable. Muslims minus creamy layer. That is the-
Even YSR gave 4% in United Andhra Pradesh.
So one can give.
It is there, sir. Is it there now? 4% in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But I am saying constitutionally one can give.
So, but
One can give, just 1 second, by defining the class, that's one. And number two, two states are already doing it. So I think Muslims minus creamy layer makes a reasonable sense. Or another thing is extend SC reservation to Dalit Muslims. So in that way, the numbers from the OBC list will come down and some will go to Dalits because Dalits also are under OBC list now. So their numbers in OBC will come down and some of them will get SC reservation. And some can be given total overall reservation minus creamy layer. Reservations can be an effective policy.
Generally we say
But
that-
finally, you know, KCR reservation talk and all these things, finally, all this will finally help BJP maybe. Because as long as people are thinking in terms of Hindu and Muslim, it is an advantage to BJP. Because Muslims may want that percentage, but then these people will say, see, it is pro-Muslim and anti-Hindu, and Hindus won't like it. So finally, that's what BJP wants. No, it's very much possible that BJP will come on these issues. It may come in Andhra Pradesh also.
Sir, I was asking.
Society is not really secular. It is just that the leaders were secular and they were playing a fair game without touching on the base emotions of the people. But now this is a different game. They are raising the vulgar and base emotions of people, which were already there. Society is not really secular. Hindus are not really tolerant. It's just that they are tolerant towards all kinds of beliefs. That is true. But they are intolerant towards people. This is a strange kind of tolerance, isn't it? How can you be tolerant of belief and intolerant of people? Okay. It is true in terms of beliefs, in terms of ideologies, in terms of gods. Hinduism is tolerant. There is no doubt about it. But then there is a prejudice. Hindus think they are Hindus only. There is no doubt, and secularism has not gone deep. So it is the elite that is probably contributed to secularism till now. But now in the so-called deepening of democracy, some parties have come up which are playing with the base emotions of the population. Previously, leaders did not do that. And also, probably there is a loss of ideology. Some people are saying there is a loss of ideology. Ideology is related to struggle. Maybe we struggled and at that time there was an ideology. Now there is no struggle. This is a pampered generation. So there is no struggle. No struggle, no ideology. So there is no depth in thinking. That's how I look at it. It's all cross materialism. I'm not saying that the people have changed, but people's thinking depend on circumstances. I would say there was such an ideology during Telangana movement in Telangana. Okay, people would think. But then after the movement, people forget. They settle down to the status quo. So that is why, struggle, conflict, they are good things. They serve the soul of the society. India was great when it was fighting for independence. Kashmir is great now because it is suffering. Suffering contributes to enrichment. Our attitude towards suffering is wrong. All kinds of shallowness, superficiality comes when there is no struggle. Of course, it calls for intelligence to lead a better life, even when there is no external discrimination and domination. That calls for more intelligence. So on the whole, there is no discussion on what are we here for, what is the nation for, what do we want to do with our lives. There is no discussion. I think if anything is going on in the mainstream, there are some people like you who think that their life salvation is writing civil service exam and possibly having an opportunity to do. That's all. It is an extremely narrow and individualistic. And maybe you try for some time and then either you get it or you don't. And then you think that you tried your best to do something good and now you don't owe anything to anybody and then be busy making money. That's all. But if there was something like freedom struggle, then some of you would have taken part, some of you would have been in jails. That would be a different life altogether. So struggles create great nations. Okay. Under such circumstances, you yourself would have a different image of yourself. People around you would think that you are selfless. But now it is very difficult for any one of you to convince the one around you that you are selfless. It's very difficult because they don't see any such selflessness in you. But if you are a part of a struggle and you are suffering, yes, people around will recognize. Yes.
Sir?
No, I am sure some of you are perfectly capable of that.
Sir,
During Telangana struggle, some people were doing that. They lost their careers. They made many sacrifices. That is human nature. We are capable of greatness and we are capable of meanness. both are there in us. So under certain circumstances, the greatness comes out. Under certain circumstances, the meanness. So it is a quality of leadership that takes the meanness or that takes the greatness. The present day party is a party that takes the worst in a person. So it makes people think very, very negatively, hate, and then on that basis, they want to get elected. It's not that the people changed. It is just that leadership found this a strategy. Others have understood the strategy, but they do not exactly know how to handle it. Probably you need politicians who are committed not to seek any power, but committed only to educate people. Maybe that might help. But we are not seeing such leaders. We are equating politics with power. And to get power, people are doing all kinds of things and finally falling prey to that game. Please, Nikhil.
Sir, two things. Sir. One, on this Muslim reservation you were talking about, sir. So I remember that Congress bought this Muslim reservation bill some time back. I was in college then, I think. Sir, like there was some constitutional issue, but what we are discussing is that Constitution allows such thing because it was pulled back after a while. There was some 5% or something.
We can look into judgments in this regard, but I am saying that the clause can be used. That is number one. And number two, there are actually 2 states who have shown that is Possible.
Um,
Muslims as a criteria with creamy layer. That's all.
so, sir,
And the idea, if you ask BJP people like Ravi Shankar, they would say, see, look, Ravi Shankar Prasad, they will say that, see, it is secularism, religion can't be the criteria. It's not like that. Because it is secularism, religion can be a criteria, because reservation is to undo the inequality. So that is the basis of reservation.
An Indian brand of secularism allows that, the kind we wanted.
Yes, it should allow.
That is what. If it is in America, that would have been wrong. But our brand is
Exactly. So this is basically, we are using the label secularism to deprive others. And I want to tell you, if this is what it is going on, then don't you think Jinnah's arguments were right? And if Jinnah's arguments were right, don't you think the modern day historians should rework on the old arguments in the light of the way Indian democracy is functioning? Did anybody from JNU do that? What are the so-called leftists and Marxists are doing? Shouldn't history be revised? We were secular that days, then those people. What is all this nonsense?
partition could have also played a role in this thing, because
Exactly. But then the partition would not have needed this bloodshed. Congress should have said, please go. Please go. That's all. Because in a democracy, majoritarianism is inevitable. And that's exactly what Syed Ahmad Khan said. And the history books call him communalist. He said so clearly, I saw the working of liberal democracy. It finally becomes majority rule. So it becomes Hindu rule. And why do I want? Extremely sensible. Jinnah opposed, but later, though, going by the way Congress was working and the politics unfolding, he thought no, separate state was best. And if these people, if Hindu leaders were really great and Mahatmas, they should have understood, okay, you please go, because finally it would be majority rules and there can't be an escape. And they didn't do that. Hindu leaders did not do that, and after that, Hindu historians did not write differently. All this is Hinduism. There is no leftism here, there is no Marxism here. These are all Hindu people. Hindu version of history. So the idea that the JNU is a stronghold of rebellion, leftism, unconventional thinking is all wrong. That is the fountain of poison. Somebody else is using the poison. It's all Hindu history. When you are calling Syed Ahmad Khan is communalist, you are a Hindu, not a Marxist. So my point is that you created that narrative and somebody is using it. Now what do you do? What do you do now? You made an enemy of Pakistan. You said Kashmir belongs to yours. And then these people said, if Kashmir belongs to yours, and if you are convinced, what is the relevance of 370? Very logical then. What do you do now? So that is why this is more like ethnic democracy. Institutionalized majoritarianism. It would be very, very simplistic to blame BJP or Hindutva for this. No. They are not responsible for this. They're simply making use of this to their advantage. Things have become worse, there is no doubt about it. But to think that these people started the whole thing and these people have specialized in villainy is not at all true. There is not a single problem which they have created on taking initiative. No. Nor is it Congress. How about historians? How about Marxists? Why can't the leftists come out clearly, let Kashmiris decide what they want? And if they can't say that, why do they call themselves leftists? K.N. Panikkar says, what is it? Sumit Sarkar says, I am an orthodox or old-fashioned Marxist. How is he old-fashioned Marxist? Where is Marxism in him? K.N. Panikkar, I don't know how, Romila Thapar. Where is Marxism? Where is ideology? These are all Hindu ganging up. So BJP is not committing any special sins. They're just making use of the poison that others have created. That includes left parties. Okay. And some people knew Ambedkar, Ambedkar had amazing insights on this. He wrote a book on partition. He looked at various proposals and finally that book was like an appeal written in 40s, like an appeal. Let Muslims live. Cannot live together. Then he worked on minute details, graphs and maps of how the partition should be done. Jinnah read that book, Gandhi read that book. They used it in their negotiations. But neither Pakistan recommended nor India recommended. It's amazing. Ambedkar worked out everything and then said, you please let them live. And then he looked at Savarkar's position. He said it is dangerous. And strangely, he looked at Gandhi's position and he said, Gandhi's position will not win. Through Gandhism, you can't accommodate them. And trying to accommodate through Savarkar's is dangerous. So both of them are going to fail, and only the solution is partition. He said there is nothing wrong. He was critical of Islam, just the way he was critical of Hinduism. That I found was best book on modern India. And I didn't know the contents till I actually read that book. So which means there were people who had an insight. And Ambedkar is not a small person. He had access, others read. So this Hindu arrogance, I don't see anything other than Hinduism in this. There is no Marxism, there is no secularism. It's ganging up on religion basis. So saying that role of introducing religion in politics is communalism is a wrong way to think. That is to exclude alternative perspectives. So you teach all these things, and now you have youth who think that India is great, Pakistan is false, evil, and then they do these kinds of things and those kinds of things, and we just don't know how to address those feelings. They're so sure that they are right and the other is wrong. China is wrong, Pakistan is wrong, and Kashmir is ours. They have never read anything, they have no alternative perspective. So, these are Hindu institutions. Jawaharlal Nehru University. I don't know what is Marxism in that. Not better than Banaras Hindu University. Okay. And they discuss the problem of communalism, the evil of communalism. Who is communalism is an evil? You are contributing to it, thinking themselves they are Marxists. See, the Marxist agenda is that we are secular, so you be. But you very well know that secularism is impractical and majoritarianism would be the reality. So accept it. So partition is one way of reducing domination. Remember, entire modern institutions like legislature, executive, judiciary, separation of powers assumes that those who have power will dominate and how you reduce. In fact, that's how the entire modern political thought began. That man is power seeker. And how do you deal with this man is the issue. So within a nation, legislature, executive, judiciary, but if you can have a separate nation, that's best. So, do you know what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir? If a fraction of it happens in UP or Bihar, the governments here can't survive. Hindus think it is their problem, Muslims. Hindus don't think it's our problem. No. As long as I am not affected, okay. So, what I want to say is that it is not the making of BJP. They're simply making use of it. That is why I'm more angry with so-called Marxist historians, more angry with JNU. Because you are more angry with people with whom you think there is more responsibility. I feel professors have more responsibility because they are the leaders of ideas. What went wrong was history writing. Same thing about Christianity also. It is a very bad treatment of Christianity. Christianity has done so much, but where is the discussion?
Even calling the good work by Mother Teresa as missionary activity.
People criticize Mother Teresa also. Each Christian missionary, what has it done? How people are transformed? No. So basically, it is this orientation. We created problems which we are not able to solve. Kashmir is a problem we are not able to solve. Pakistan is a problem. China is a problem. Nuclearization. And more importantly, because we are not able to solve, we did not concentrate enough on internal problems like development. Even though somebody can throw a bomb and then create an anti-Pakistan and get elected, that's what Narendra Modi did last time. Okay, one terrorist event or anything. Jai India, anti-Pakistan. There are many people who are willing to vote. So basically, we got sidelined, sidetracked because of this foreign policy failures, because of the way we handled these things. And the way we handled depend upon the way we taught ourselves this history, the entire narrative. Why this is important is that if we have a different view of those things, you will have a different view of others. Essentially, why do we hate others? We hate others when we don't know ourselves. When we think we are good, others will become bad. But when we have some doubt that maybe we are not good, others become different. And then when we think that others may be good, others have a point, then you have a reason to negotiate. So that constitutes intelligent foreign policy.
So where do you place?
Just 1 second. When you are so sure that you are right, there cannot be any negotiation. And I can tell you, I am so sure we are wrong. It's about narrative, selective narrative. We can take global sources. Okay, let's come back to this. The issue is that other issues also combined with communalism in India. Foreign policy and communalism are linked. So one makes Pakistan as an enemy, And who is the representative of Pakistan in our neighborhood? See this man. So communalism, foreign policy, national defense, nationalism, all combined in an explosive mix. Communalism alone is easy to handle, but communalism combined with nationalism is more difficult, and that is what the BJP is doing. Because people can proudly say, yes, I am an anti-communal, wow, wow. But will anybody say, yes, I am anti-national? No. People are willing to say, I am anti-caste, anti-religion, but they are not willing to say, I am anti-national. Then they should come out and then say, I am anti-national, if this is what nationalism is. So they're using an explosive combination. So finally, somebody who says anything positive about Muslims becomes anti-national because this Muslim is connected to Pakistan and the Pakistan is connected to Kashmir. All these things. And then they are so powerful because they are aided by China. See, look at this. So all of them are combined. And whenever communalism fails, whenever there can be a threat to communalism, they have inexhaustible resources from nationalism. Some terrorist attack, some Jawans, finish. Jai Bharat Mata. Everybody will vote. Otherwise, you are a Pakistan. Who has the courage to say no? Yes, I am anti-national. Anti-nationalism should be a proper ideology that the professor should teach. That what can be wrong with nationalism? What are the limits? And why anti-nationalism is desirable? We don't have such thinking, such lessons. And definitely, if somebody is a Marxist should communicate that. Because Marxists believe that only class is real and everything else is false. Everything else is used for class domination. And nation can be used, and nation is being used. But which Marxist has said, yes, I am anti-national? No. So, these all explosive combination. So any problem is ultimately linked to a neighbor who is a Muslim. Okay. I think we discussed these things. Okay. Now take this question. Impact of secularization on various religious communities in India. Impact of secularization among religious communities. This is a question. Okay. See, this is a more serious issue. So let us discuss more philosophically here. That is the reason why I included these two articles. Essentially, I don't know if you followed that video. Islam developed in an extremely primitive context, very primitive society. It was not like Buddha's society or Jesus' society. Jesus was addressing an empire, and Buddha is already advanced. Upanishads were there. But Prophet Muhammad was very simple society, and then he said things, heaven, hell, and then only one God, and I am the only prophet, and that too I am the last prophet. And then all kinds of primitive laws as with religious sanction. Quran has that enormously simplistic, and probably he didn't think that what he was teaching would spread to so many areas, so many people, and one day become a nuisance. So he didn't think. So it spread, and but then when it spread, it absorbed many things. It was not simply Quran and Prophet Muhammad, many things. And most people think this Sufism is one of the most advanced. And because we read Advaita and things like that, I said this Sufism is coming from monism. What is monism? In fact, you have monism in your syllabus, though they have never asked any question on this. Types of religious practices: animism, monism, pluralism, sects and cults. Okay, monism is there. Monism is the idea, is about oneness. There are different kinds of monism, but monism in the context of Hinduism, in fact, when you are writing about Hinduism or features of Hinduism, you can include these things also. And in my notes, I gave many quotations. You can use those quotations. So monism is about oneness of God and man. Okay, God, man can be God. Man is equated with God. This one strange thing about Hinduism. So I think this is related to ideology of moksha, some transformation. But finally, man can be treated as God in Hinduism. And I think this went to Islam and finally became Sufism. Sufism posits closeness with God, and then simplicity, chantings, worship of saints, and all kinds of things. And we have many Sufi saints in India. So in fact, that is how Islam in India spread. Islam in India spread because of Islamic rule and also Sufism, Sufist teachings. So like Christian missionaries and Christian rule, Sufi teaching and Muslim rule combined, and finally conversions took place. So that's about the history. And where are we now? I think as of now, such a really relatively primitive base, it spread to advanced societies with a very narrow ideology. And I think there is not enough of secularization, enough of criticism. Why is it not enough of criticism? If you take Christianity, see, the entire westernization, modernization happened in Europe. In Europe first. That is the story of modern world. It's modern Europe. When modernization in Europe was happening, Christianity was being changed. Reformation, all kinds of things, scientific revolution, enlightenment, so many things changed. So Christianity got transformed and modernization took place. And that modernization during colonialism spread to many countries, including India, which means Christianity is a transformed religion. And the Christians were the people who brought modernization all over the world, whereas Islam remained static. So that's why you can see least amount of secularization in Islam. Okay, so this is not Islam versus Christianity, because Christianity is hugely modernized and westernized with the Western civilization, whereas Islam remained very backward. So these are very serious issues. And in the context of India, the lack of secularization in Islam and the backwardness has also contributed hugely to the backwardness of Muslims. So that is my central idea. I included spirituality, I included the world developments and Indian development, and little more about the world. Remember, now it is the westernization that spread, but at one time, Islam was ruling the world during the medieval times. And Europe was under what was called Dark Ages. So Islam was ruling. It was later Under modernization or modern era, Christianity became different, scientific innovations, industrial revolution, and finally triumphed. So the Muslim mindset is like this. We were rulers and we lost power. And power to whom? They think they lost to Christians. They don't think they lost to the Western civilization. They lost to science. They think they lost to Christians. And so this is the source of extremely primitive thinking. And if you ask me one very serious problem other than economic problem, I would say the nature of Islam and this religious clash is one very important problem that we are facing. Okay, so more modernization of Islam, or at least accepting that others have changed and only we have not changed, would make so much difference. Why these issues are important is that you can talk to top professors and scholars in Islam. I mean, you can watch, they're so primitive. Even the most advanced people in Islam are very primitive. They be their speeches. So hugely inadequate secularization, which is a global problem. It's a global problem. If there are problems that the Muslims are facing, there can be intelligent solutions. So theirs is not the right approach, and the world is generally handicapped in dealing with religious issues. So it is also confused about the religion. And these are also linked to India because terrorism is linked to Islam, and then global terrorism, and then anti-Muslim, and then so anti-Hindu. So this Islamic terrorism is also reason why emergence of right governments are taking place all over the world. Okay. So I just gave a very, very brief overview of so many things. Now you can ask some questions.
Sir, we have decided, we have concluded in our earlier session that
We have decided
all religious practices should constitutional value should be upper, and religious practices should be in accordance with the constitutional values.
Constitutional
Sir,
rights.
sir, why Muslim women are not allowed into mosques, and why judiciary can't do anything? I know there is this doctrine of essential practices of religion.
Muslim women are not allowed into mosques.
Yes.
Yeah. Why? I mean, that is a much minor issue. Far worse things are going on and nothing was done.
And at the same time, the entry into Shabarimala happened. Why the discussion of entry into mosques did not happen even?
Islam is in such a state, people stopped discussing it. To talk about that as a problem, they are a stage where Hindus were in during that religious reform movements like Rajaram Mohan Roy times.
But state should do something.
State failed in two ways. State hasn't helped economically and politically, nor it reformed its religion. Two failures. In fact, BJP method followed in the case of religious reform, it would have helped Muslims. So that's why I said give a different approach. You help people economically and politically. Shall I tell you how to demolish Islam? Help women. Enough. They will fight their own mullahs. Educate women. In fact, education of women in any religion will upset the priestly order, because woman empowerment itself is anti-religion, is a rebellion. In every religion, it's like that, but in Islam, it is more so. So I think Indian state did not have an intelligent strategy. Also, you don't have to talk about jihad, Kashmir, and things like that. Just reservations, help Muslim women. That's all. They will fight the battle on behalf of everybody else. Woman is the weakest link in Islam. So don't quarrel with Prophet, don't reinterpret Quran. Just help. And that's what happened recently. Those people who are all out, Muslims, clerics were all out to say, no, we will change. Next time we'll be different. No. So in fact, the world also has to realize Muslim woman is the vulnerable point and not Sufism. Muslim woman, don't talk about religion. They are beyond repair. So Muslim woman. Okay. So I believe this is the least secularized religion. You can see the least amount of secularization by listening not to the common people, but to the scholars. That is a tragedy. To the scholars. You can talk to your friends. I was shocked by the friends. I mean, very, very well-read people. If you ask them, do you think there is really Allah? And they find it offensive. They think, of course there is. Whereas to most people, I mean, they take it casually. Well, of course, there is nothing that can offend Hindu. Hindu is immune to all kinds of offenses. So you can say there is no God. You can say you are the God. All kinds of things are possible. But there is so much of vulnerability. So secularization is an issue, and that is an issue. And then rights is another approach. In fact, the Muslims, you know, the issues that we are normally thinking in terms of Hindus, but if you are taking from their terms, they are doing many self-destructive things. I think Pakistan could have forgotten about Kashmir and focused on itself. And so many states, Muslim states, are so repressive. They don't talk about the freedom in those repressive states, but they put some bomb in France and then talk about all kinds of things. So they are not really solving their problems. So extremely backward in religion, extremely backward in taking care of themselves, reactive. So creating problems for everybody.
So how to empower Muslim women?
Muslim women, education, job reservation, loans, self-employment schemes. If you are a Muslim woman, you are a champion for us. That is enough. We are not going like that. Of course, religious reform. We neither help, Hindus neither helped positively, and then they discriminated. So you created this kind of inequality, and now talking about problems.
So do you think BJP will be at a better place to do all this if it wants to do?
It is not willing to do.
It is not willing to do.
It is
but
not willing
if
to
Congress does it, it will be anti-Hindu.
Congress could have done, but Congress, basically, this is not a secular society. Why are politicians not able to take a tough stand? Because they don't think they can convince. They're not Gandhi's, right? Gandhi will believe in his stand and he will address. Either people, either he convinces them or not is a different issue. Gandhi won't think in terms of what should I tell them so that they will listen to me. So first he will speak his mind. So politicians are not like that. So they're not saying, they're always thinking in terms of how to get more votes. And there are certain positions which are very difficult to convince. In fact, how can you convince Hindus that the Muslims are suffering? It's beyond.
That is, sir, if Congress does it, they might turn away. But if BJP, whom they think they are champions of Hindus, if they try to do something,
why would BJP want that? BJP
just like they did with triple
BJP is, I don't think BJP wants to create a safe and secular and healthy India. They want a society where Muslims are crushed. They're shown their position. So why should they empower Muslim women? Do they want well-being of Muslims? Definitely not. Do they want a different kind of India? No, they don't want. They want Muslims to be crushed, manipulated, shown their position. So why would BJP be interested in that? This should have been Congress agenda and it didn't. Congress believes in secularism. Congress believes in this, but unable to do it.
BJP did at least triple talaq. Congress did not
BJP
do
did it, yes, but it won't do more than that. It was the one that organized rioting. So many Muslim women were raped. So banning triple talaq is not out of concern for Muslims. In fact, Amit Shah, Amit Shah may not want one MLA being elected on the basis of Muslim votes. Okay, I mean, it is not that he will change his speech there, because Amit Shah is aiming for larger issue. Larger thing is polarization. If people tend to think on the basis of the merit of the candidate, how will BJP come? So going by the merit of the candidate is not right. He may get a seat there, but that's a compromise on the principle. So it is a Hindu state where Muslims are subordinated, shown their position, disenfranchised. What is all this citizenship bill? Not that do they think they can send them to any country? No. Is it in tune with international law? No. But what purpose does it serve? Create fear. Tell the possibility that you can be placed in a camp. You can be imprisoned for certain days. You can be harassed. All this is to remind. Otherwise, what is the legal basis? Suppose they are not citizens, what will you do now? There is nothing. So what is the game? The game is division, polarization. Remember, you are nobody here. Constantly remember, you don't have the right document. Don't talk. So the game is domination, not creation of a prosperous, secular, and healthy India. They don't have any such games, any such ideals. But Congress had, Constitution had, and those who had did not have the courage to go about it. They compromised. And the result of the compromise is this. Somebody who doesn't share the ideals have power and now the ability to carry on their original intention. Okay. Now, any other questions, please? Anything on the global position, secularization?
So not on this, but I have a question on this reservation thing.
Okay.
Sir, I don't understand how does this work? Like if someone is suppose SC or ST and converts to Christian, do they lose the reservation or SC, ST reservation?
Yeah, they lose reservation because there is one cannot be a Muslim and at the same time be an SC.
But sir, ST, I think in case of ST, this does not.
We are not talking about STs, we are talking about SCs. We are talking about Dalits only.
Okay, for STs it does not happen. Like for STs.
ST as an ST, he can take to any religion.
Any religion.
But there were no tribal Muslims. There are only Christians, Hindus, or others.
Yes, sir. Christianity conversion.
There are some in Lakshadweep. They are basically, that's a different case altogether. Okay. Any other question? So let me see. But let me tell you, you can write these religious issues also. Okay. Impact of secularization on various religious communities. You can talk about it. What are the dimensions of secularization? Dimension of secularism, secularization, position of woman, caste, or belief in God, belief in scriptures, or prayer behavior, consciousness of identity. There can be many dimensions of secularization, whatever we discussed under religious revivalism. Secularization is the opposite of religious revivalism. Yeah, one question. Write a critical narrative on the concerns of religious minorities in India. Tell me, what is the concern of Christian minority? Now let us discuss few things about Christians. Critical narrative on the concerns of religious minorities in India. Religious minorities. Tell me, what are the concerns of Christian minorities?
Dalit Christians cannot
That is
freely
one.
profess.
And Hindutva is becoming a concern to them also. Because this rioting and violence is a rare thing, is happening now. Violence, rioting, burning. Okay. Otherwise, Christians are a extremely diverse community. Diverse community. They don't have a sense of oneness, no history of conflict, no history of hostility. Okay. So smooth, but then only recently with Hindutva, because Christian missionaries are accused of converting people. Now there is violence. Okay. So otherwise, there is no conflict between Christians and Hindus. So in your answers, you focus more on Muslims and something on Christians. That should do. But the primary problem is with Muslims, not with Christians. Okay. Distinguish between sects and cults with illustration.
Hiram is trying to speak something.
Huh? You are not following me? You are not audible?
Hiram is trying to speak something, so we cannot listen.
Okay, Hiram. You want to say something?
Please unmute Hiram. It's not audible.
Unmute. No, you only have to.
I think there's some issue with your earphones.
Hiram, tell me. Not audible. I think problem.
Not clear.
Okay. Fine. Take this question. Hiram?
Am I audible?
Yes, now you are.
Please, in case of concerns of religious minorities, concerns, what can be the various dimensions? Means what are the various angles we can
Concerns of religious minorities.
Yeah.
You go by community wise. Instead of clubbing all, discuss Muslims' problems and Christians' problems. Because problems are very different and diverse.
Except the religious one, can we, any other angle is there? Means Hindutva, then Dalits is there. Any other
For Christian minorities?
For any of the minorities? Concerns of minorities. Besides
that is why for religious minorities include, handle Muslims separately and Christians separately. Whatever we discussed, you write under Muslims and then Christians, like that.
Okay.
You don't have to club both of them.
Okay.
Separate them, Muslims and Christians. By clubbing, you don't get much. There is very little common to them. Very little common to them.
Okay.
Okay. Distinguish between sects and cults with illustrations. Tell me, what is a sect? What are the examples of sects? Protestant and Catholic is a sect.
In Buddhism also. Hinayana, Mahayana.
Sects and cults. Shia Sunni is a sect. Shia Sunni is a sect.
Hinayana, Mahayana.
Okay, Hinayana, Mahayana. They are sects.
In Hinduism,
Sect is
sectarianism,
many
Vaishnavism.
basic things are assumed to be common and some differences. That is a sect. Many things assumed to be common. Shia Sunni, Quran, Prophet Muhammad, okay, Hadiths are common. But who is supposed to succeed? That is the basic division between Shia and Sunni. Protestant and Catholic, Bible, Jesus, God, same. But role of church is the difference between Catholics and Protestants. So if something, most of it is common and some differences, that is a sect. Whereas a cult can be something entirely new. Cult can be a sect, but cult can be entirely new, and one day it may become a different religion. It can become a sect or it can become a new religion. So cult can be anything. Sect means section. So cult can be something new. Sikhism started as a cult and became a religion.
So any existing cult?
Any existing cults, maybe Hare Krishna movement is a cult.
What's a Sarna tribe or something? They demand for a separate religion all the time.
Which tribe?
Sarna.
No idea.
There's a movement going on in like these areas, Jharkhand, and demanding for a separate religion. Sarna tribes.
What do they want to demand?
They want a separate religion. So, because they don't come in any of the institutionalized religion and a big population is there. So I was wondering if that is a sect or a cult. So
Sect is part of a main